I'm going to talk about tuning the guitar. It's probably one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, that you need to be aware of and able to do when you're learning the guitar or playing the guitar at any level. Your guitar needs to be in tune. Otherwise, no matter how much time, effort and practice you put into your chords or your songs and everything, it's going to sound rubbish. It's the equivalent of playing the chord wrongly, and it just doesn't sound right. So, when I'm talking about tuning the guitar, we've obviously got 6 strings on this guitar. Some have more than 6, but most guitars have 6 on. Each of these strings needs to be tuned to a specific note. If you're aware of the notes that the strings are tuned to, we've got E, A, D, G, B and E. So we know the notes that they should be tuned to. How do we make sure that we are tuned to that and we keep it tuned to that so that our playing sounds as good as it can be? There's a few methods we can use, and I'm going to try and cover the most common ones. There is a technique that's known as relative tuning. Some people call it cross tuning, where you don't need any other gadgets or equipment or anything. You can keep the guitar in tune with itself. I'll cover that right at the very end, and the reason for that is because it's only useful if you're playing your guitar on your own and not playing to anything else. So for example, if you want to try and play along to a commercial song, if you're, for example, some of my students are doing a course called Rock School, and there's backing tracks and things like that they need to play along to, or if you're playing along to my videos or to anybody else's YouTube videos, then your guitar needs to be correctly tuned. That method won't work if you want to play along with anything, so I'm going to leave that till later. So assuming that your tuning wants to be absolutely correct, we need some kind of a reference point or some kind of a guide to make the guitar in tune, so that we know, for example, that when I'm playing an E, how do I know that that's an actual E note? So I'm going to have a look at some of the different ways that we can make sure that our strings are in tune, and by doing that, our guitar is going to sound good every time we play it. So the first method I'm going to talk about is using an app on your phone or your tablet or whatever, freely downloadable. I've tried to put my phone up there so hopefully you can see what's going on. You might not see the finer details of it, but hopefully you might be able to just see the little indicator moving on the screen of that. Let's say if you search your Google Store or your Apple Store or whatever, you should be able to find a selection of these for free. I've used a few of them. They're all the ones I've seen are pretty much okay. They do the job. There's a few limitations I'll talk about, but just to get going with. So I'm gonna play my E. You might be able to see something on the screen there. I'm just trying to watch it on the monitor as to what's happening. I'm going to put that string purposely. I'm going to put it out of tune. So that's no longer in tune. So I'm going to have to tune that string. So by using the app, I know that string's lower than what it should be. The app's telling me that. So I'm going to start tightening the string using the tuning peg. Hopefully you can see the indicator. I can just about make it out. I'm bringing the string back up to pitch there. It wants to be usually on any kind of tuner when it's at 12 o'clock, when the display is at 12 o'clock. That's telling you the string is in tune. If the display is sort of before 12 o'clock, if you will, and the string is flat, it needs to be tightened to bring it into tune. If the display is after 12 o'clock, your string is too high in pitch, and we need to slacken off the tension on the string, on the peg, to lower the pitch to bring it into tune. So that's one method that you can use to tune your guitar. I was just using as an example, my 6th string on the guitar, the E string. This obviously works for all the strings. I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but it also tells you the note that we're aiming for. So I know I want an E. That's telling me it's going to be an E. and it's also giving me an indication of where I am in terms of sharp or flat, or whether I'm actually in tune up the middle. In terms of limitations with these things, it depends to some degree on your phone, how good the microphone is, because it's trying to pick up the sound from what I'm playing and process that in the app. So sometimes, my phone's not brilliant, it's nearly as old as me, I've had this about 6 or 7 years, so this is by no means a flash phone, but it works quite alright. And if you've no other means of doing it, then it's grand. I'd recommend it. One of the problems you might have is because it's working off the sound. One of the things that I do, I teach in a group that's in like kind of community centre setting. There's all kinds of things going on. It's usually quite busy with people, so there's quite a lot of background noise, and it makes it less effective for your tuner to work. But assuming you just sat at home in your room, your living room or whatever, that should be perfectly good. If you're finding it struggling to pick up your noise, one thing you can do is to actually put your phone, sit it on your guitar, because it'll pick up the vibrations as well, and that'll help it to be more accurate. This type of tuning app works both for acoustic guitars like this, and also works for electric guitars as well. So it's a good way to get started if you don't have anything else to use. Second thing I'm going to show you is one of these little gadgets, a cheap little clip-on tuner. I think this was about, I don't know, 10 or 15 quid or something like that. These are great because they're just so easy to use, and you don't need to rely on your phone. You don't need to rely on any expensive gear. So this little thing, it just clips on literally to the top of my guitar, the headstock of my guitar. Again, it works for acoustic guitars and electric guitars just as it is. And the display on it, because it's small, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to see, but it's going to tell us the note that we're trying to achieve, again just like the phone app does, and it's also going to give us that little indication of whether we're too high or too low. So all we need to do, it's super easy, is just twist the peg until we get the indicator into the middle. On this particular one, I think most of these type of devices do this, but on this particular one it makes it even easier, because it will light up green when the string is in tune. If it's not in tune on this one, normally the display is orange. When it's absolutely in tune, it lights up really clearly green, so you can see perfectly that it's in tune. So again, it might be difficult for you to see. I'll see if I can just put it a little bit closer. Using my low E string, my 6th string as an example, I'll just detune it a bit. So I know for a fact that's not in tune, and you can see it's showing up orange. I can see on the monitor that it's showing up orange. So I know that it's definitely not in tune. I can see if I was looking at it, I can't see the display on it because I've showed it to you. It's showing me that the string's flat as well. So I know that I need to tighten that string, raise the pitch of the string, just like in the last example I used, to bring it up to pitch. So I'll do that, start tightening the string. And look there, the thing's turned green, and I've got the perfect pitch for the string. Again, that was my low E string. It works exactly the same on any of the other strings. It actually, if you could see it, it says E on there because it knows I'm trying to play an E, and it's guiding me to that. And when it turns green, Bob's your uncle, your string's in tune. It's a great thing. Again, it works on electric guitars as well. So they're two of the more basic methods. When I say basic, I mean the most cost-effective methods. The phone app thing is free. As I say, this gadget was 10 quid, 15 quid, something like that. Obviously, the more expensive equipment will be a little bit more accurate in absolute terms, and it might be a little bit easier to use in terms of a display that's simpler to see and easier to use. So when you're just starting out, I probably wouldn't even bother with anything more than this, but you might have seen, for example, if you've gone and seen a band playing or something like that as a guitar player, you might see them have little boxes on the floor that sometimes they sort of touch with the feet to, more often than not, to change the sounds that they're using, because obviously hands are busy whilst they're playing, and they use it to change from a clean sound to a distorted overdrive sound, or to add special effects on for a particular part of the song. One of the pedals that you can buy is specifically a tuner, and it's really useful if you're doing in that environment. If you're playing live, working with a band, you can switch your tuner on in between songs. It'll silence your sound, and it'll give you a really good clear display, so you can have a really quick tune up and see it brilliantly clear in between songs. They tend to be a little bit more, when I say more accurate, I also mean they're a bit more responsive as well. So it'll respond really, really quickly to the changes you're making, which is important if you've only got 30 seconds in between two songs to try and get your tuning sorted out. I've been in that position, and they are great for that. But if you're not constrained by time, if you've got a little bit of patience, just a couple of seconds more to let this thing understand what it's hearing, then these are absolutely fine. You don't need to go into the more expensive key. Those sort of things you're probably looking at, I don't know, £50, £100, even more than that to get the really top quality ones. So that's the other end of the scale. The other thing to mention with those floor pedal boxes and the fancy gear, they don't really work with acoustic guitars, they're for electric guitars, because you have to plug them in. They have to have a signal cable plugged into them. On this actual guitar, I mentioned it before in one of my other vids, this is electroacoustic guitar, so it's got a little socket on, so I could plug that into a external tuning device if I wanted to, but on a standard acoustic guitar you don't have that option. So those type of tuners are not suitable for a normal basic acoustic guitar. Finally, I mentioned the relative tuning approach, which if you're not trying to play along to anything, or if you're not trying to play along with someone else, it's fine just for keeping your guitar in tune with itself so that it sounds okay whilst you're practicing. But that's all it's good for. It won't make sure that you're absolutely in tune, so that when you want to play to a backing track, when you want to play with your mate or anything like that, it's no good for that. It's only good for you on your own, your guitar, nothing else. Just making sure that each string is in tune with each other. I'll put I'll make sure there's an explanation in the description of the notes that I'm using to do this, but just to demonstrate it to you, if I play a 5th fret on my low E string, my 6th string, I know that that's an A note. You don't need to bother remembering that, but because I know that's an A note, that should sound the same as my A string, which is the next string down. So I'm playing, that's my open A string, that's my 5th fret on my E string. So I can compare those two, and they should sound the same. Again, I'll drop my string down a bit, so I know that's out of tune. It sounds awful. So I need to tune my string up a bit. I've got it back in tune just by comparing it to the other string. I can do that again. I can play the 5th fret on my A string, which is a D, compare that to my D string to make sure it sounds okay. I can do that again. So my 5th fret there on my D string, which is a G. That'll be the same with my G string. The next one's slightly different. We need to move down to the 4th fret. Doesn't really matter why at this point, it's just how guitars are tuned, how they're set up. But I'm looking to achieve a B note to compare with on B string, so that's where I'm going to find it. 4th fret on my G is the note of B, so I can compare that note with my open B string. And then finally, for the last strings, I can go back up to my 5th fret. 5th fret on my B string is the E note, which I can compare to my high E string, my 1st string. if they're all sounding in tune, in harmony like that, so they don't sound awful or dodgy, then you know your guitar's in tune with itself. It's not necessarily in tune with another guitar or with a band or a backing track, as I say, or a CD or something on the radio. It's just in tune with itself. So I'll put the different frets you need to use in the description in case you forget it. But just really quickly, it's your 5th fret, your 5th fret, your 5th fret, your 4th fret, and back to your 5th fret. When you've done that, just to double check, because we've got 2 E strings on the guitar, the 1st string and the 6th string, they're both E. So if you play those two together, those 2 open strings, they should be in tune with one another.